Africa's streaming revolution is no longer emerging, it is accelerating. From hyper-local storytelling to data-efficient technologies, the continent's over-the-top ecosystem is entering a new phase of innovation, competition, and collaboration. In just days, industry leaders, policymakers, broadcasters, and global streaming platforms will gather in Cape Town for the 6th OTT Content Streaming Summit, convened by Broadcast Media Africa in partnership with the SABC. Joining us now to take that conversation forward is Lungile Binza, who is Chief Operations Officer here at the SABC, to discuss the role of public broadcasting in Africa's digital future. Good afternoon, COO, and thank you for your time. Let's talk about what this summit is all about. I mean, it's the 6th OTT Content Streaming Summit and the themes that it brings to the fore under the theme of streaming futures, unlocking reach, relevance, and revenue across the continent. What is it about?
Good afternoon to us and good afternoon to your viewers. It is about how Africa, as the continent, can start to actually play a significant role when it comes to OTT streaming. We've seen a lot of streamers, especially global ones, coming to the continent, and then they just, walk in without any issues, and then they just, take over everything that has to do with Africa. This summit, BMA has been hosting this for, I think, the last 6 or 7 years now, and mainly in Cape Town. And they've been partnering with various, public broadcasters across the continent. And this time they are partnering with us so that we can actually start to talk quite meaningfully about what it means to be an African, but also an African that's streaming. Should we always be using, the global content that's coming out of, other jurisdictions when we've got content that's generated here in Africa? And I think this is one of the ways where we can actually come together and start to talk about what is it that we can do as the continent in order to ensure that we actually tell our stories. We share ideas. We also talk about how do we monetize our own content, which is quite monetizable, by the way, because it is in demand.
Yeah. So for us as a public broadcaster then, how does this fit in with the various mandates and priorities around, for example, digital transformation and the whole issue of universal access? How do you balance the two?
Yeah, so our public mandate is very clear. It's information, it's entertainment, as well as education. So what this does then to us is we just have to ensure that the SABC Plus presence is actually being felt across the entire continent. So the public mandate of universal access simply means that we should be available in all jurisdictions of at least our country, which is in South Africa. That's why everywhere you're traveling, you will always find an SABC in South Africa. Whether you are in the Northern Cape, you are in the Northern KZN, or you are in Limpopo, there will always be an SABC service, simply because our universal access mandate talks to us, being present everywhere. So with the OTTs, what it does, it's actually allowing us to be even more present in the areas where we've been present already. So for instance, I always make this example that when I studied at in Cape Town, I had friends from Limpopo, and most of those friends didn't have what I can call a Pala FM. It used to be Radio Venda at the time.
Yes. And
with SABC Plus, what it does is that it breaks all of those regional, boundaries that used to exist. Because now you used to, when you're in Bloemfontein, for instance, you'll find Lisedi all the times. But if you are now somewhere in the Eastern Cape, you can find Lisedi easily through SABC Plus. And you're in Cape Town, you will find Pala FM with ease, simply because, the boundaries have been broken. So the platform on its own, SABC Plus, has actually just, not just, grown phenomenally. Yeah. It has also, started to demonstrate the behaviors and the values that we are looking for from a platform of that nature. And that's why it has to be protected and it has to continue to grow. So we need to continue to invest on it. So it is by far giving us what we're looking for a universal access perspective, because now it brings, a universality everywhere you are, as long as you've got data and broadband.
But is it necessitating an adaptation of the content strategy for the SABC? Also, just that growth in OTTs, but also talking to this whole issue of the growth of a digital-first audience.
That's correct, yes. I mean, we do know, Africa is quite a very youthful continent. When we talk within the SABC circles, we always talk about South Africans having a median age of just 28 years. If you go further up north in Africa, you find that age is actually coming down to close to 21 years or even 19 years old in other countries. So which means the content that you are having in the strategy for SABC Plus has to talk to that, to that population. And as the SABC, then we are obviously putting in content that talks to, our youth. So for instance, you can have the best the best platform in the world, but the content that informs that platform is the one that's the engine. People get onto the platform to access a certain content, and if your strategies are not adapting to that type of requirement, you are obviously going to fail as a platform. This is what made, for instance, the SABC Plus to be, the biggest, streaming platform in Africa, simply because the type of content that we have there is talking to our local, context, talking to our local culture, is talking to our youth. I mean, we've just launched now gamification, which is one of, what our kids these days are using when they're sitting at home, and they can access all of that, on SABC Plus. There's also the AI, content that we recently launched with Microsoft. That is youthful content where people can actually interact with it, get accreditation, and then they can be able to apply for jobs. And even the guys at universities, I don't know if you know, Tulas, but the way they binge watch Skim Sam, it's so nice for us. So it is something that we have to always be on the lookout for. Content, and even more content on the platform, because these things, we call them content guzzlers. And they really want, as much content as possible, and we are giving it all of, that type of content that it needs.
Of course, COO, we are talking about all of this because these are likely themes, and in fact, more than likely, the themes that will dominate the conversation at the OTT Content Streaming Summit 2026. The producers want me to ask you about exploring new revenue models, right, that come with all of this. But I wonder if that's possible without revealing too much of your hand, and that's why I have a bit of a chuckle. To the extent that you are able to talk to the conversation around revenue models, please do so.
No, thanks to us. Obviously, we are operating in a very competitive market, and everything we say in public, it gets taken up quite seriously by our competitors. But one of the things I can mention, just not to reveal too much on the hand, is I think you correctly pointing out, is that these platforms, they cannot live on advertising alone. So what we're doing, for instance, is what we call pre-roll, mid-roll, as well as post-roll. So that means we are rolling an ad before it starts to run whatever. Let's say we're watching the news channel. Somewhere in the middle, you would roll another ad, and then at the end, you can roll another ad. It's not going to be enough to us. These things were meant for subscriptions, and we have to also look at that. And SABC Plus is a free platform. We call it a freemium, which means it's got free content, but also there's premium content in it. And therefore, we need to find ways of ensuring that we try and monetize, that type of content. As things stand, I think most of you guys within the media industry are aware that most of the revenues are still going to the big global companies. For instance, Meta, which is Facebook, Instagram, as well as WhatsApp, it's taking about 34% of this revenue market in the streaming world. The same applies to Alphabet, which is YouTube as well as Google. they take another 30% of this. And then you still have Microsoft, you still have Netflix. And then what's left is around 13% of these revenues. And that's what we are all fighting for. So we definitely have to employ a lot more, technical as well as strategic, initiatives to try and monetize the platform. But yes, it's not going to live only on the advertising and sponsorship alone. It has to move beyond that.
Yeah.
And we're busy developing those. But as you know, I can't reveal all of that.
Yeah.
I'm live on air because it might just, put us in a very, disadvantageous position.
We don't want that. So let's save some of it. Sifihle Induka Mqubeni, CEO. Thank you for that. Lungile Binza is Chief Operations Officer at the SABC. There'll be plenty of time to get into a bit more detail at the 6th OTT Content Streaming Summit, which is, of course, the host broadcaster is the SABC.